everybody. Before we jump into today's episode, we have two sponsors we want to say thank you to for supporting this show. The first one is Routine. You guys have heard me talk about Routine, honestly, back from the early days of the podcast, and it's still a product I use every single morning. They have a prompt for me here. I'm going to do a little impromptu on this ad read today because honestly, this is a product that I truly believe in. And so I'm just going to tell you guys exactly what I think and why. First and foremost, this is a stat that they shared, but when you sleep, you lose between a pound and a pound and a half of water. And most of that's just sweating while you sleep. I used to not know if that was actually true, to be honest. I felt like a pound to a pound and a half of water seemed like quite a bit while I slept. But the one thing I did constantly pay attention to when I started using Routine was just the fact that before using Routine, I always felt a little dehydrated in the morning. And I'm one of those people that when I get up really early usually. I work out. One of the first things I do is some form of fitness. It's just like what I do before everyone's awake. And so it's very easy for me to grab a coffee, pre-workout, an energy drink, something with caffeine in it, and just go. When I am good about using Routine, first, I basically they come in these little single serve packets. They contain half an organic lemon, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, Himalayan sea salt, all 6 essential electrolytes, and they have no sugar in them at all. A lot of hydration products are going to have sugar. So one of the things about Routine that I love is that there's no sugar in there. So when I am good about doing this consistently, I will take one of those single serve packets, I'll throw it in my mixer bottle, and whether I also put in a pre-workout or something with caffeine or I just drink that separately, I try to drink that first. And the days I do that, I do genuinely feel hydrated and just have a different form of clarity all morning. A lot of people have tried to make their own homemade versions of Routine, right? You see people they take a shot of the apple cider vinegar, they put a little sea salt, a little lemon in a drink. This is essentially that, but in a product that you can take with you on the go, have it ready for you first thing in the morning. I know me personally, when I'm groggy rolling out of bed, the last thing I want to do is, squeeze a lemon, cut lemons up, go get the apple cider vinegar, find my sea salt. I just rip this packet open, throw it in my water, drink it, and it's good to go. You can try yours today. If you haven't tried it yet and you've been listening to this podcast for years, just try the damn Routine. Give it a shot. You can use code ShaneWhite30 and get 30% off your first order. So you get 30% off by using code ShaneWhite30 and go to yourroutine.com. To make it even easier, I've added the link to yourroutine.com in the show notes. So just click on the show notes for this episode, click on the link to yourroutine.com, and don't forget to use code ShaneWhite30. All right, guys, today's episode is also brought to you by NeuroRoast. Again, I'm going to go a little off script here. NeuroRoast is a product that I also came across during this year of 2023. They are a coffee company that's helping you optimize your brain function and overall well-being. This is another product that, to be honest with you, when I first started working with it, I was a little on the fence. I was like, do I really want to have mushrooms in my coffee? Well, folks, I will tell you, when I use NeuroRoast, one of the things that has stood out to me the most is I'll back up. People that know me know that I have way too much caffeine, typically. One of the things this year I've done a good job of is cutting out alcohol. Not completely, but predominantly, I don't touch a lot of alcohol anymore. What I think I've actually done the other way, though, is add a lot more caffeine. So I do definitely drink too much caffeine. That's something I need to work on next year, is just trying to minimize how much of that. But NeuroRoast is something that has actually helped me because of the way they've formulated their coffee. Like, unlike regular coffee, which is still something I consume, but NeuroRoast specifically doesn't cause jitters or crashes. Mushroom coffee provides a more balanced and sustained energy, allowing you to stay focused and productive throughout the day. So the times I do use NeuroRoast, I'll be honest, I just don't feel that jittery, like, I'm jumping out of my chair or standing here at my desk jumping around feeling. So give NeuroRoast a try. They have some really good flavors. I'll be honest too, the two guys that started NeuroRoast are just really good dudes based out of New York, and they're hustling, and hopefully they can get some people to try NeuroRoast this holiday season by listening to this podcast. So for you folks who've been on the fence, I'm telling you, it tastes delicious. They've done a fantastic job of making this coffee not only be functional, but taste fantastic. And if you want to try NeuroRoast, you can use code ShaneWhite. So it's super simple, just ShaneWhite at checkout. you'll also get 30% off. So if you go to neuroroast.com, and once again, I have added that to the show notes. So just click into the show notes while you're listening to this episode. You can click on NeuroRoast link directly. Don't forget to use code just Shane White, and you'll get 30% off your order. Hope you guys love both these products. I'm trying to not only bring you guys products that I use, but that I believe in on the podcast. I'm not taking ad reads for any brands that I don't really believe in. So anyway, hope you guys love both those products, yourroutine.com and neuroroast.com. I've added those links to the show notes. Hope you guys love it. And I got an awesome guest coming up right after this. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Shane White Show. I am pumped today to have Dillon Dandurand from Not Beer on the podcast. Dillon, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Shane.
Thank you for taking the time. Before we hit record, I was telling you how I was fired up to have you on. Loved the brand, loved the marketing angle of this, and I've become pretty passionate person about just the non-alc space in general and the brands trying to pop up there. And your product's awesome. So, without further ado, though, Dillon. Yeah, man, of course. Would you mind, for everyone not listening who doesn't know you, doesn't know the brand, just giving a little intro, a little background into you and the product?
Sure. Yeah. So everyone listening should take a very deep breath in through their nose, out through the mouth, because our lawyers say you gotta preface that when you tell people, because too many people have fainted when they hear, and we don't want to start with a lawsuit here, because we created something really innovative. It's the world's first zero carb, zero alcohol, zero taste beer. That's right, Shane White listeners, we did it. It's not beer. It's sparkling water in a beer can. And so it looks like a beer, it talks like a beer, but it's just water. So you can drink it all day, every day. And so it's a fun, sustainable alternative to boring single-use plastic bottled water. And it's a healthy alternative to beer and alcohol. And so that's not beer. And then on my background, I think it's important to kind of start from the beginning. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. And so my parents started the men's skincare company, Jack Black.
Did they really?
They did.
Whoa, okay. Didn't know this.
Yeah, and so that was, really the first luxury men's skincare brand in the market. They started that in 1999. And that was at a time when people thought that men would never care about their skin. And there was there's no venture capital funding whatsoever for CPG companies. And so they went all in. They started that in the living room of our family home. And they grew that over 18, 20 years into the number one brand in that category, and really creating that category and ultimately selling it to a large strategic company. And so that was a great learning experience for me. As you can imagine, a lot of the dinner table conversations went back to business and starting a company, the challenges, the opportunities. I worked in the business every summer, starting as a order kidder and pick and packer, and then kind of scaling up from there. So I always wanted to do something entrepreneurial. And I then started my career in investment banking and got connected to Aaron Gotti at Brahmi about 5 years before he was launching, or not 5 years, about 5 months before he was launching Brahmi. And he was looking for a right-hand man, someone to help him launch the business. And I always wanted to do something entrepreneurial. I thought Brahmi was really exciting. It was playing in a very interesting category that had a lot of good tailwinds, but it was really unique. It was the only lupini bean company. Lupini beans are an incredible kind of crop, the most protein per calorie of any plant on earth. There's 0 grams net carbs. And so they're really unique, but awesome and right on trend. And so I thought it was a very, very kind of compelling opportunity. And so I joined him in August of 2015, and I spent 8 years at Brahmi. Brami's in a great position right now. It's more than just lupini beans. It's now a healthy Italian food. We just launched an amazing healthy pasta that uses semolina wheat and lupini beans. And so it kind of tastes more like real pasta than some of the alternative pastas, but has the same nutritional profile. So they're in a great spot, but I always wanted to do something on my own.
Got it. Okay. I'm not going to lie. You just blew my mind because I had no idea you were related to that brand. Funny enough, because I work with a really like they're a small up and coming like men's skincare brand, and so I've really started like dive into that industry a lot more in the last 6 months. That is wild. So, well, it's wild too because your parents launched that. You said 99. To your point, there was no like venture capital was not really a thing in CPG. So I'm assuming they just bootstrapped it and they figured it out from scratch. Yeah.
Yeah, they basically committed their life savings to it.
Wow.
Didn't pay themselves for multiple years at the beginning, and kind of grew it how you used to have to grow a business.
Yeah.
You kind of have to be profitable from day one.
Wild concept, huh?
Yeah. A little bit different than nowadays, but.
Well, it's wild, Dillon, because I was doing some research before we came on. I think we're roughly the same age. We were in college at the exact same time. So I'm thinking back to my childhood and then hearing that as your story of your upbringing. Obviously, you already said like there were so many probably family dinners where you're talking business, talking about all of that. Was it weird for you to then go to college, get a degree, and then go into investment banking? Like, was that what you always wanted to do? Or was that kind of a weird jump from, being a part of the family business and all that? Cause that almost feels like going backward, not backwards, just like a totally different path than it sounds like you're on now, obviously.
Yeah. And, I think when you're younger, you kind of, it takes a while to know what you really want. And a lot of top achievers go into investment banking and do the private equity route. Like, there's a lot of money to be made, and so you're like it draws you into that because you're like, all right, that's where all the money is, that's where the prestige is. And so I'm an ambitious person, I'm hardworking, and so I kind of, when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be a private equity professional, and then as you're older, pretty quickly, once you become an investment banking professional, you realize, man, owning your own business would be pretty nice. And like working for yourself and kind of coming up with ideas and being able to execute on them and seeing the value that they create would be nice. And so it didn't, I think investment banking is a great place to start your career, and you learn a lot and you learn how to work hard, and it opens a lot of doors. But I realized pretty soon that I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. I wanted to, build something. Yeah. So it is much different. And I realized, pretty quickly that the grass wasn't quite as green as I thought it would be on the other side.
For sure. Yeah, I know. It's funny. Everyone I have ever known that started in investment banking, I think you quickly realize how many hours you're expected to work. You make good money, but it's a grind. And then I feel like most people who are doing well in it are like, wait a minute, I could probably work this hard on my own thing and make it a lot further. That's wild. So then the Brahmi jump. So from going from investment banking to Brahmi, you said that was kind of just an organic, you guys got introduced to each other.
Yeah. So it's actually kind of one of those butterfly effect type stories. And so one night I was, I obviously am close to my parents, and I told them like, I was looking for something new and in terms of a job. And my mom sent me this magazine, like Inc. magazine, like 500 most innovative companies or something. And usually, let's be honest, I don't really read at that age, I wouldn't really read what my mom sent me.
Sure.
But one night I got home from work like relatively early, so like 11:45 p.m. and I was like, all right, let me give this magazine a read. And so I kind of was flipping through it, and I read that article, and the company they profiled was Warby Parker. And they had a quote from a partner at Lear Hippo. And it said, Lear Hippo, a New York-based seed stage venture capital firm. And I'd always been interested in venture capital because I saw it as closer to that startup world that I wanted to be in. And so I was like, Lear Hippo, like, that sounds interesting. I kind of researched them. I found this guy on LinkedIn who worked there, and I cold DM'd him. And I said, like, just to kind of network with him, asking for, kind of hoping to get a job at Lear Hippo. And he told me, he was like, hey, we don't have any off openings right now, but what we really look for these days are successful operators, less so in kind of classic investment banking finance world. And we just incubated this company, Brahmi, and he's looking for a right-hand man to help him launch the business. Would you be interested? And so that's how I got connected with Aaron. And so it's, it's really one of those, if I didn't open that magazine that night, I don't know that I would be here today.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy, man. That's a cool story. Also just goes to show, I mean, that's a magazine, but now in today's world, it's kind of crazy. This is such a random analogy or like an aside that ties to that. Sometimes I think about, doesn't matter who I'm with. I was interested in what they're looking at on their phone, and not to belittle. I mean, I do the same thing. I'm on TikTok or Instagram from time to time too, but sometimes it's funny, like how much of wasted time that is. And I've started to really think about, it seems like today, I don't know what, if it's changed or maybe it's just like what I see, but it seems like even if I decide to just hit LinkedIn instead of one of those, and I'm on LinkedIn for it feels like if I'm even on LinkedIn for 5 minutes, I end up coming across someone, some brand, something that I don't know. I can reach out. It just seems like there's so much opportunity on LinkedIn now. It's crazy how you can get on there for a few minutes, see some cool things, reach out to people, network. It's a different world.
Very underrated platform.
I would agree.
Like you can really
probably the most underrated.
Yeah, you can really get the word out there. If you have a solid post, it can go viral on LinkedIn. Almost like not as viral as like a really viral TikTok can, but certainly more viral than an Instagram post. Like I don't know how you make an Instagram post viral unless you're super big.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's changed a lot. That's true.
And same with like tweets. Like even a tweet is hard to be viral if you're small. But for me, like I had no followers prior to launching Not Beer, and I posted a Not Beer kind of launch post, and it got like 50,000 views.
Oh wow! On LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have. It didn't happen on Twitter. Certainly didn't happen on Instagram.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. There you go. There's a good analogy. So you go to Brahmi. I love this whole diving into the story. So you go to Brahmi, and you were there from, was it 2015?
Yeah, 2015 to Thanksgiving 2023.
Oh wow. So okay. So you were there for the vast majority of the growth of, I mean, but basically the whole time Brahmi's been growing.
That's right. Yeah.
Good for you, man. Wow. Okay.
Thanks.
And then what did you came in as you came in as a co-founder, right?
No, so I joined him as his like right-hand man. So I was 1 year out of college, and he was looking kind of for, at that stage you're really looking for anyone. Like it could be a marketing person, it could be, digital marketing, field marketing, social media. You need help everywhere.
Right.
And so he was looking for someone in marketing, and he was interviewing other people who had more food and beverage experience. But I think the reason he chose me was like, he saw the passion and the energy and the resilience and drive and like during our interviews and during my kind of case studies and work exercises. And I think that is the most important quality for an entrepreneur and for a founding team, are those qualities, especially resilience. Like you get knocked down so many times when you're building a business. We've already, even just in this month, we've had our ups and downs at Not Beer, but like you got to pick yourself back up. And, my mom kind of taught me this, like any sort of setback, instead of saying, oh no, and kind of feeling sorry for yourself or feeling down, you say, good. Like I'm going to prove you wrong. Like this gives me an opportunity to get better, and I'm going to show you, and like, whatever.
It's like the Jocko Willink. Have you seen that video?
Actually, it is Jocko's real quote. And she kind of relayed that to me.
I love that. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so I think that's why he went with me. And so I joined as just kind of his founding partner, not really the co-founder. And then over the year, like maybe 2 or 3 years in, he kind of rewarded me for my good work and called me a co-founder.
Okay.
But it was never, it's always was really his business, never really mine. Like I a key part of it, and I still consult today with Brahmi, but it's really his business, and I always wanted to do my own business.
Okay, got it. So it was like you were basically, I would consider you basically a co-founder, but on paper it wasn't really. So for you, Not Beer was your first opportunity to really like hit the ground on your own
Sure.
idea, your own
Yeah, that's
concept.
fair. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. I mean, it's funny too. I'm sure. So my background, I was at RX Bar, not at the start. I joined in 2017, just before the acquisition with Kellogg. So, towards the tail end of what I call like the scrappy days.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like, the 4.5 years I spent there were like getting an MBA in business for sure. So I'm sure for you, Brahmi, that whole time of being there had to have felt the same way. Like the amount of experience you got in building a business was probably profound.
Yeah, great learning experience, and I think that's part of the reason we're able to stay like a lean team today at Not Beer. Like currently, I'm the only full-time employee. And I think it has a lot, if not everything, to do with my time at Brahmi, because I was exposed to all the different areas of the business: marketing, sales, e-commerce, operations, finance, HR. So yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. Like
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you so when you started to jump and start Not Beer, did you give Brahmi, was it kind of like a planned thing, like you knew you were going to start it and you're going to have a time to leave, or did you kind of start it in the background? How did you kind of like even come up, and where did this all begin with Not Beer? Like when can we say the
Yeah.
beginning of it started?
So the beginning was I was on this drive from Austin to Dallas, and I saw a billboard for Bud Light Next, and the billboard said 0 carb, 0 alcohol beer. And I said to my friend, "What are we doing here? There's no carbs, which is what beer is made from, and there's no alcohol, which is why we drink beer. Like, at what point is this no longer a beer?
Yeah.
Like, what if we remove the flavor and it's just sparkling water, and we called it Not Beer? And we're laughing, we're making bits about it, we're kind of joking around, and but then you kind of sleep on it for a bit, and your life gets in the way, and you don't immediately pursue it. But I was still thinking about it, and then I went to a concert in Austin. It was a hot summer day. I go to the bar and I order a water, and they give me a Liquid Death. It's in a cold tallboy can, so it feels like a beer. It kind of looks like a beer with the packaging. It sounds like a beer with the opening. It has the mouthfeel of a beer because it's sparkling water. And so it plays a psychological trick on me where I feel like I'm drinking a beer.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel, a lot of the value of beer, I would say 99% of the value of beer or alcohol is the feeling. And it's not just the feeling of getting drunk. It's the feeling those companies sell us in their marketing. It's the confidence. It's the fun. It's the relaxation. And probably most importantly, it's the inclusion. When you're at a party and you have a beer in your hand, you feel like you're a part of the party. You feel connected to those people. Even if it were just you and me, Shane, and it was after this podcast and we grabbed a cold beer, we feel a shared bond.
Sure.
Whereas if we just drink this Yeti, I don't feel anything. I feel nothing to you.
Great point. That's a really good point.
And so when you're drinking beer, you're not just getting the drunk feeling, but you're buying into the fantasy world they create. And so Bud Light's fantasy world is, cheers to a good time. You're always going to have a good time when you open up a Bud Light. Corona's is, find your beach, like kind of the relaxation vibe. Heineken is more like I'm Mr. Sophisticated. And so each time you consume alcohol, you're buying into that fantasy world. And as I'm at that concert, I was feeling those feelings. I was feeling connected to the party. I felt like I was having fun, but I wasn't getting any of the downside of being drunk. I wasn't, getting drunker. I wasn't making my hangover worse. I wasn't making my anxiety worse the next day, getting dry mouth. And so I was like, man, that's a great consumer experience. And then I went to another concert like 3 or 4 weeks later, order another water, and they give me an Ozarka, and it's in a plastic bottle of water. Yeah, it's in a plastic bottle. I've got to twist open the cap. The label starts peeling off. The bottle starts crumbling in my hand. It's very clear I'm not drinking a beer. It's very clear I'm not having any of those fantasy world feelings. And in fact, I'm feeling the opposite. I feel like I've given up on having fun. I feel like it's 1 a.m. on a Saturday, and it's that moment when the party is over, and
Yeah,
it's
I
time
get
to
it.
start
Yeah.
drinking water and
Yeah.
sober up. Like Monday is coming. Like the fun was fun, but now it's time to sober up and get serious. And that's what I was feeling as I was drinking that Ozarka. And so what I did was I just chugged the Ozarka and ordered another beer so I could go back into like having fun. And it was at that moment, like it was really that moment that it crystallized for me what a different, like how different the consumer experience is based on the psychology, and the psychology driven by the marketing, the branding, the packaging. And so from there, I was like, maybe we're onto something that's not beer. And I started to put pen to paper on the business plan, shared it with my parents, got them behind it. And then, I was pretty upfront. Like I told Aaron, he's a great guy, who's super supportive. I gave Brahmi like 2.5 months probably. So it wasn't
Okay.
like, hey,
Nice.
I'm peace out. I'm out tomorrow. We had like a nice transition plan, and started raising money from friends and family, working on the supply chain, and uh, getting all that stuff set up.
Wow. Okay. So, and I'm sure you've gotten this question a million times already from trying to raise
Yeah.
some money. Your example you just gave, and this was one of my big questions that I thought of when I was doing my own research, is I'm assuming what you feel like Not Beer can solve is actually similar to what Liquid Death is solving, except it's another brand that's honestly way closer to the feeling of a beer than what Liquid Death does. Like you even said, like Liquid Death made you feel it from the opening. You're still holding a tall boy, but ultimately it's a can of who knows what. It's called Liquid Death. They have their own marketing. Is your thought there when you came up with this was hey, like obviously if you look at any bar, it's not like there's one beer. There's tons of brands of beer. Is your kind of thought there's a similar space for that with sparkling water, with water or non-alcoholic alternatives as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like water is the biggest category in grocery ever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so there's plenty of room. And
100%.
right now, there was, the concept was really like, it really goes back to that billboard that we saw when we first came up with it. And it was more that Liquid Death success was validation. This is a good idea.
Yeah,
And so
for
it
sure.
proves that people, they prove that people want something like this. However, they're the only offering. And, some people may not want that offering for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there needs to be a second offering. And so yeah, I think there's plenty of room for multiple brands. And I think we're quite different. I think we're similar in that we're both fun waters in a tall boy can, but our brands are like very different vibes for different people. And I think, some people have been, there's a ton of people on the internet, like always commenting, whatever, saying you're just a Liquid Death copycat. You know, is Fiji water just a Evian copycat? Because they're
Fair
both
point.
sourced from a spring that's remote? Like, no one's
Right.
saying
Yeah.
that.
Sure.
Is Waterloo a LaCroix copycat? Like, those brands are a lot more similar than us. And so I don't think we're a copycat. I think we have some similarities, but we're distinctly different.
That makes a
And I
ton
think
of
there's
sense,
room
man.
for that. I think there's
Yeah, and
there's plenty of room
I
for
bring
it.
that up because I think it's what's funny is Liquid Death. I feel like it was such an aha for a lot of people when it really started to become profoundly everywhere, and just like every category, I think again, my background in CPG really started with protein bars. You look at that set. I mean, there's been so many, and there continues to be a lot more. Honestly, every year there's a lot of new protein
Yeah.
bar brands. So I think it's a really, really good point. And would you then also say that Not Beer from a like what's actually in the can? This is something I don't know a ton about with your brand. Is there anything specific you're trying to do? Is it really just sparkling water? Is it because it's funny, a lot of brands try to say like where the water's from or where they get the water or how the water's produced is doesn't seem like that's a really big focus of you guys. It's more of just
Well,
the use
so
occasion and the
so it
marketing
is
more so.
definitely a big focus for us. Like
Okay.
the number one lesson I learned from my parents is there's nothing more important than product quality. And so you could have the funniest commercials in the world, the best branding in the world, best packaging. If the product isn't good, it'll never work. People won't buy it again. Consumers are not stupid. And so you
Right.
can trick them once, but if it doesn't taste good, they're never going to buy it again. And so quality is very important. We're just not leading our marketing with the sourcing story and the vitamins and mineral stories because
Okay.
everyone else does that. And you become an interchangeable brand. And so quality is super important to us. And that's why we use reverse osmosis purified water. So reverse osmosis is the most advanced form of purification. It gives you the most pure kind of representation or form of H2O there is. So what is water? It's a chemical, it's H2O. And so reverse osmosis gets you to the most pure form of that. It's like 99.99% pure.
Oh,
The
wow.
only downside of reverse osmosis is that it doesn't have the natural minerals because it removes those. And so what we do and what makes us different from the other reverse osmosis brands is we add back a mineral blend. And so we add back a mineral blend that makes our product more hydrating, tastes better, and healthier for you. So quality is certainly very important, and it's something we're proud of. It's just not what we lead with because that's what everyone else does.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. I honestly love that it's different but part and the same. Um, really cool. So that is a great background, I think, for anyone listening who, didn't know what your brand was. The other piece of this that I always feel like is a really important thing to hit on is, okay, so Dillon has this concept, the inception story, going from you having this idea at a concert and even starting to pencil out or, write out what the business plan would look like. Lots of people do that, right? Lots of people have a great idea, start writing it down. What was the real like 0 to 1 moment for you? Did you, because for you, this isn't like I always go back to protein bars because I know them so well. It's not like you had to then go in your kitchen and start coming up with,
Right.
the product, right? You obviously know what the product's going to be. So what were some early steps for you, Dylan? Like what was step one besides the business plan? Was it, hey, I'm running the numbers and I realize I have to raise capital. So I'm like going to go do that first. Or was it getting a minimal viable product? What was kind of like the first thing you can go back
Yeah.
and be like, this is my first step for Not Beer?
The first like big step was investing in a branding project.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
like before I could raise any money, I had to show that I had to bring this brand to life because it wasn't gonna be so convincing if it's just some words on a deck. Like
Mm-hmm.
if to take a phrase from Jeff Bezos, what makes our beer taste better is our brand. And so we had to invest in that before we even raised money. And that was really like the kind of, okay, this is serious because it was a significant personal investment for me. Um, and once we made that investment, then it was like, okay, this is on. Like I don't want to just burn all that money and not move forward with this.
Of
So
course.
that was the
Yeah.
first step. And then once I had that brand, we could just start to tell investors about it and raise some money. And then we kind of refined it to the version that you see today. So that was really like that first kind of,
Yeah, I
this
love
is
that. It
serious
makes a
moment.
ton of sense. And for doing that, obviously you've got a lot of entrepreneurial background here that you probably relied on. But for anyone listening, who this is probably where most people, I would argue, get hung up and their
Sure.
idea stops. Did you go to like a branding agency? Did you find someone, like on Fiverr? Did you know somebody? How did you even go and figure out like what I see now on your website, for example? How'd you kick that off and figure out who to work with?
Yeah. So I think the first step is coming up with a pretty clear idea yourself. And so I knew I wanted it to be a red can. Obviously I knew the name. I knew I wanted it to be red, white, and blue, kind of have a white oval, look like a classic
Okay.
beer brand. So
Yeah.
I had a very clear idea. I think, everyone's got their own approach, but I think that works better for me personally is when you have your own really clear idea and then you have someone execute on that versus like just hoping that some branding agency will solve your problems. So we had the clear idea, and then I had a friend who I had worked with at Brahmi on certain projects. I worked with him on the first iteration, but there's so many
Very cool.
resources now. Like you can just what I would recommend to other people at this stage is like come up with a clear brief, have a good idea of what you want, really do that part yourself and do that thinking, and then find the partner to execute on that idea and take it to the next level. And you can find that partner a lot of different ways: Google, LinkedIn, Fiverr, depending on your budget. But that's how we approached it.
No, that's a great point. And one thing as I looked at your brand originally, I love it. It's so nostalgic, and like you definitely think you're drinking a beer. It's such a different angle than, like, for example, what Death is doing. I'm assuming when you did the branding too, like I'm trying to think off the top of my head, this is what's funny about it. It's like I think beer right away, but it's not like one brand even comes into mind. Was there any worry knowing like this category, especially the beer category, is just a lot of Goliaths, I would say, from a brand perspective? Was there anything you had to be careful of, or you'd recommend to people when it came to just making sure you don't step on toes for, any of the big beer brands or anything from a design perspective? Or was that really not, since it's not beer, was that not really as big of a worry for you?
Wasn't a huge concern for us. We're clearly not beer, so we're not in their category for one.
Yeah.
We didn't copy any of their fonts or their colors or anything like that. So there's no real concern there about that.
Sure.
But certainly something you want to be cognizant of, and you want something that is distinct. You don't want to look just like another product in your category.
Yeah, this definitely doesn't look like that. I love it. By the way, I didn't tell you that at the beginning, but I really do love the design. It's sweet.
Thanks.
Okay, so I mean that's awesome. So you go through that process. You get a product ready to go. How was it when you tried to start raising some friends and family money? Did you get a lot of positive reception? Did you get some negative reception? I always love this because I always feel like the best founders take bad feedback or negative feedback and turn it into an opportunity. Just like you said, the good thing.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
I'd love to know what this was like for most people that you pitched this to in the early days.
It like we had a couple no's out of the gate, and so I was like a couple of people who I thought were going to be investors, and they were the first people I went to. They said no, but once we got rolling, it was like pretty good success rate.
Okay.
So just stay determined and continue believing in yourself. And I think one, as they say, when it rains, it pours. And so like once you start getting that momentum, it becomes easier and easier. Just those first ones are kind of the most difficult. And then you get a hang of the pitch. And I think, it's different when you're saying, hey, when you're first going out there and you say, okay, they ask, who are your investors? And you're like, well, it's just my parents. And they're like, how much have you raised? And you're like, well, it's just X. Versus later on, once you have a lot of investors, you're like, there's 20 investors, we've raised 1.2 million. Now it feels less risky because everyone else is in.
It's that famous, what's that famous meme where the one guy's dancing on the hill and then slowly like two people go and then three people and then like the whole hillside's dancing. Have you ever seen that?
I've not seen that, but that is the idea.
I'll have to send it to you. It's exactly what that is. Like the first person takes the hardest.
Exactly. Once you start getting, and I think that's true of any process, right? It's like getting those first believers is the hardest because that's the most risky. Now, once I see other people investing, well, I don't want to be the one on the outside who skipped out on that not beer investment. I could be a billionaire. So
that's right.
So it was, we had our no's, but stay determined, stay positive, get the yeses, and then stack them up.
You did it at a tough time too, Dillon. I feel like this has probably been the last, call it 2 years, probably one of the more difficult times in recent memory for young CPG brands to raise capital. So good for you. I mean, I know, you said it was a friends and family more so round, but either way, I mean, I know there's been a lot, it's been difficult for brands in general. So that's a big success in and of itself.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. We feel good about it and we think it puts us in a great spot, but as Kobe said, job's not done. And so it's just, it's nice to have, but it's not the end game. And we're more focused on, really building this business.
Love it. Yeah. Love that. So now now the story is coming to, we're getting to like the meat and potatoes. So you you get that, now you had some capital, you produce some product. Was there anything big hiccups for you when you went to produce the first product that you were able to go sell? Like that's always a fun part of the story. If there was some major
Yeah.
roadblock that you didn't see.
Yeah. So like when we were first starting, we had a manufacturing partner that we thought was going to be our partner, and we did like a factory acceptance test, and they were basically like, we don't want to run this product. And I was like, it kind of left us holding the bag, if you will, because this was in November, and we were hoping to like kind of right after I quit Brahmi, we thought these would be our partners, and we were hoping to work with them, plan to work with them, and they're like, we don't want to be your partner anymore, and so we had to scramble. But it actually ended up being a huge blessing in disguise because we were able, through networking and like kind of asking, Joe. Oh, I lost you.
Wow. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I've never had that happen before. I got totally just like booted out. Sorry about that. Was that me? It must have been me. Yeah. Okay, it was me. I'm sorry for everyone listening. All of a sudden, my whole screen just went like lost internet. I've never seen that happen before. But we're back.
Was shocked by my story.
Yeah, it was. It was at the cliffhanger too, so that'll be fun. I asked if there was any major roadblocks, and you were literally about to go into it.
Yeah, I'll just answer that question again.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, go for it.
Sure. Yeah, so like there was a roadblock on the production side, manufacturing side. We had a partner, our first partner, who we thought was going to be the partner that we launched with. And as we're approaching the first production run, they tell us that they don't want to work with us. And so we're like, shit, we've been counting on them to be our partner. We have all these investors who are ready for us to launch. It's hard to find a manufacturer. You would think sparkling water would be easy, but it's not that easy. And so we're like, it was a very stressful moment for me.
Oh, I bet.
But we kind of used our network to get in touch with another manufacturer, and it ended up being a huge blessing in disguise. And so it was kind of like the Jocko thing that we talked about earlier, where this one partner said no, and it was actually a good thing because we got a better partner who, is great, has great quality, great scale, great price, and can really be a long-term partner for us. So it ended up being a great blessing in disguise for us. But at the time, it was very stressful.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh my God, we got to restart this whole manufacturing process. Most of them don't return your calls. All the big ones have super high minimums and super big minimum annual volume requirements. So it was stressful, but we were able to persevere and come out stronger.
Well, good for you guys. Yeah, I mean that's a bad.
There, huh?
Oh, I know. She's not supposed to be.
I love cats.
Oh, do you? There you go. Her name's Checkers. She's never. I don't think she's ever been on the show before. Maybe once or twice.
She's
but
a star. I love
it's
her.
Funny because yeah, exactly right. Since the baby came, she normally would come in here and just chill, and lately she's been very animated, very all over the place. So if anyone's watching, you'll see the cat in the background, which is funny. Wild. So, okay, so you get product ready to go, and then your first retail channel is Amazon, correct? That we talked about before we recorded. Yeah. Right. So what was the thought there? Why did you guys decide to go the Amazon route first? Well,
I think retail is also, I would call it a first channel. It's just it's a little bit more of a lead time. It's hard to get into retailers when you don't have a product, and so you need to do that first production run in order to send them samples and kind of kickstart that whole thing. And it can take a while to get set up and go and wait for their category reviews, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think retail is certainly the first channel too, and honestly the more important channel. But we did Amazon because we're not selling on our website, which is very, it's unique for a food and beverage startup. But I think, the reason is because sparkling water and beverage in general is a very difficult e-commerce business. Mm-hmm. Like the numbers really don't make any sense. It's a cheap product, but it's super heavy. And so the dollars per ounce are not there. And you end up having very low margins because it's so expensive to ship this. And you still have to charge a high price. And so it's even more true on your own website where you're not getting Amazon's like good shipping fees. And
Right,
so
right.
really hard to make the numbers work on your own website. Furthermore, I don't think anyone wants to shop Not Beer for their sparkling water, notbeer.com for their sparkling
Mm-hmm.
water. I think they want to go to Amazon and they want a one-stop shop where they can buy everything and they can buy it in 60 seconds. So instead of going to notbeer.com for your water, Brahmi for your pasta, Magic Mind for your energy drink, Blake Seed Base for your snacks, you go to Amazon, you put all 4 of those in your cart, you're checked out in 2 minutes.
Exactly.
So we want to invest in Amazon because we think that can be a real platform for a food and beverage company, and the margins are actually better too. Like maybe in the nitty gritty here, but Amazon's kind of this stage is a little bit of a catch-22, and so in order to be super competitive on Amazon, you need a good price. For beverage, in order to be a good price, you need to be on Vendor Central, where Amazon buys the product from you, versus Seller Central, where we own the product and Amazon charges a fee. Because on Vendor, Amazon will incur that shipping fee. And so if you look at the category, like the beverage category, all the top brands on Amazon are Vendor Central. And they're all priced, competitively. Whereas all the Seller Central brands have to be priced much higher because we're incurring all those shipping fees. The only way to get onto Vendor Central is to have enough scale. But the only way to have enough scale is to be competitive enough price. And so you're playing this kind of catch-22 game. But I think Amazon's a great platform, and I think this brand has a lot of virality. It's already proven that. And there's no better platform than Amazon Prime to capture that virality.
I love that, man. That was nitty gritty, but I'm Amazon, so that I love all that. Yeah, the Seller Central side has a lot of challenges. We'll have to talk offline too. I'd love to pick your brain on your philosophy. It's funny, we actually know a lot of brands that are moving from vendor back to seller for some other reasons too. So it's definitely you're right though, 100% cheaper product. The margin game's tough. It's heavy, tough to ship. Beverage is arguably one of the fastest growing, but most difficult e-com channels to maneuver through. Yeah. So
my thinking on beverage and e-com is like, it has to be an expensive beverage. If it's some sort of nootropic enhanced beverage or something where you can charge a high price, then you can start to offset some of that shipping costs. But if you're a more simple liquid like we are, then it's
tough.
It's really hard. I don't know how you can do it.
Yeah, no, you have a very good point, man. So it sounds like the thought right now is, Amazon is kind of the starting ground. It's really, I mean, again, lots of brands start on Amazon and get tons of virality and get into lots of places. Is the goal in 2024 to expand to, it sounds like, retail as well?
Yeah, definitely. We're rolling out to some Texas-based retailers within the next month or two. And then we hope to do, invest in those, make sure they go really well, and then use them as case studies to get into other retailers. And our approach right now is like, our North Star metric is in-store velocity. So everything we do, we want to optimize towards in-store velocity. How fast is this product moving through the register? Because we think that's the most compelling metric and data for other retailers. And so if we can say, hey, we're a top 3 performer in all the retailers we're in, Safeway, like, take us in. It's very compelling. And so we're focused on in-store velocity, which means we're not trying to get into every single door across the country right now. We're trying to find a few select retail partnerships, so invest in those, make sure they're great, and then use that to win other accounts. So
I love it, man.
Being strategic and picking the right retail partnerships.
I love it. And I'm gonna kind of fast forward here because I love this to ask this for someone who's in the earlier days for you. And the reason I want to ask this specifically to you is because obviously what you told us about your parents growing up. For you as building Not Beer, and the answer could be both. Do you see this more as a lifestyle, family run business for a very long time that you think you could scale? Do you think this is potentially an exit someday? Obviously you're raising capital, so there's probably got to be some sort of outcome for your investors. Where do you think Not Beer can go? I know it's early, but I'm sure you've been thinking about it.
Yeah. I don't think it's like a lifestyle business. Like those are hard to come by. Like Jack Black didn't raise any outside money. It wasn't a lifestyle business. Like
Right.
they worked hard. It was a grind. It was an 18
You know what?
year
Lifestyle
grind.
business is probably a really poor. I should stop using that because it's funny. I
There
don't even
are
know what that.
some, like you see these people on Twitter being
Maybe.
like, I work 4 hours a day and I've never been richer. Like, here's my playbook. There must be some. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like everyone that I talk to in the business I run, I mean, it's just a lot of hard work. So I don't know who these people
Right.
are. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't.
I guess I
So
meant more of like a family run business where like
yeah.
you see yourself as the founder forever and you could build this profitably and scale it.
No, I think that ship has sailed since I've raised the outside capital. So they're gonna want some sort of return on that.
Sure. Sure.
So, I mean, we think this can be the next great American beverage brand. We think the brand is very bold, very unique, very appealing, and appeals to a wide amount of people. And so, an anecdote that kind of illustrates that point is in the early days when I was working on the business plan, my friend, longtime friend, met him in middle school, high school, stayed very close. I was telling him about Not Beer kind of in the early days, and he was like, I love this idea. What do you think about me consulting for it while I'm at Harvard Business School? I want to be in this class called Founder's Journey. Every student has to have an active startup that they're working on. What if mine were Not Beer? I was like, that's a great idea. We'd love to do it. And so we did it, and he did a great job. And there's 90 students in this class, obviously top business minds in the country, and all of them had the active startup they were working on. Not Beer was the standout startup of the class.
Oh, cool.
And so, each student had to record their pitch and send it in. Professor chose his 5 favorite. Not Beer was one of those 5. Those 5 then pitched to class. The entrepreneur who was visiting that day for a case study called back into class the next day to announce a surprise investment in Not Beer. I'm told that happens like once every 4 or 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And so it was like nice validation that we were kind of head and shoulders above the cohort, of a competitive cohort with like experienced judges. It's nice. But what was more exciting is that all of Charles's classmates loved it. And Harvard Business School is not the Harvard Business School of the 80s, where it's just, the same type of person, a white male. It's people from all walks of life. They put a major emphasis on diversity. And so what that proved to us is that this product is for anyone who likes to have fun, and that the addressable market is massive. And so we think this can be the next great beverage brand. And that
Love that, man. That's awesome. No, that's really, really cool. Seriously. I think that's such a great aspiration, and love to hear like the validation you've already gotten early on. I think that speaks volume to your story and everything you're trying to build. Dillon, as we wrap up the hour, a couple questions I love to ask every founder that comes on here. The first one is source of knowledge. So just something that pops in your head that you've read, listened to, heard recently. It could be a book, a podcast, just anything that you think the audience would find interesting today.
Yeah, so I love to read, and I think biographies are like a great source of knowledge. And so I'm looking here at my library. Like I read probably one of my favorites is Team of Rivals about Abraham Lincoln. And so his approach to leadership and how he puts the team first. He gets voices and opinions from all different sides. He listens to all of them. He's willing to go with an opinion that he doesn't agree with, but at the end of the day, he makes the decision, and he's firm about it, and he's kind of the leader. But he has no ego, and he's doing it for the team. So I think you can learn a lot from history. And then like I like podcasts too, so I'll listen to those when I'm like making lunch. The Acquired podcast is a good one. Shane White show, of course.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you very much. I'm going to read that book. You know, it's funny. Some of my favorite books have been with either biographies or autobiographies about entrepreneurs recently.
Okay.
I love history too. And I've never thought to go back and try to find something like that. I actually feel
Team
like
of
that's
Rivals is amazing. It's amazing.
it's a whole genre I probably need to just spend some time
It's incredible.
looking into.
It was incredible. At the end of Team of Rivals, like when Abraham Lincoln dies, like I actually was crying.
Oh, wow.
Like I'm not like a super sensitive person.
I'm writing this down.
I don't cry frequently, but it was just like, it was his, in the book, they call it the happiest day of his life. Like the Civil War finally ended. And then he gets freaking murdered.
Yeah.
It's just like so heartbreaking.
Damn.
But great.
Way to drop some knowledge on us. Love it, Dillon. Thank you. This is the last question, and the one that I'm excited to hear. I'm a little bit of a productivity nerd, not necessarily for good reasons. I'm always trying to learn and get better. You as a founder, and you've obviously been in the entrepreneurship game, investment banking, you've done a lot of different things. Dillon as an individual, as well as a founder of a company, what are the tools that you use to map out goals, whether those are annual goals, business goals, personal goals, all the way down to like the shit that you got to get done today? Are you an apps guy? Are you a pen and paper? Just like, what do you use to kind of organize all that and get things done?
Yeah. So I'm kind of a combo guy. Like I've tried a lot of the different apps, and what I found previously was like it was hard to make them stick. Like you'd have to invest so much time into learning them, and then you kind of do it for a month, and you forget to do it, and then it kind of fall apart, and it just didn't stick. At Napier, we've been using Notion, which I've enjoyed. I think is pretty good, but I do think like pen and paper is like hard to beat, especially when it's like a to-do list. Like it really keeps you focused. And I was at school, like in college, I was always a pen and paper note taker. There's just too many distractions on the computer. Like as you're looking at your goal, there's a LinkedIn message and there's another email, and there's so many of them on the list. Like you forget which one it was. Like so, I think they're helpful, but for me, I don't know that it gets better than pen and paper for like really important to dos that day.
I say this every episode, but you're in the 99th percentile of all the founders I've ever had on here. Like I think almost every single one has said the same thing you just said. So it's funny. I think that's true. I mean, I go back and forth. I have something I call a full focus planner that I've talked about on here a lot. I have ADHD, ADD, whatever. So if I don't have one central place of just the things that have to get done today, I'm the same way. Like everything feels important. There's like a lot going on my side too. And I feel the same way. I'm sure I can tell you have multiple screens. So it's like some days I also feel like I'm like, man, maybe I should just like unplug and get rid of all my screens and just have one laptop, one piece of paper. I'd probably I don't know. Sometimes I feel like there's just so much going on.
I love it does, but you feel claustrophobic if you don't have the multiple screens. I don't know.
See, I feel the other way around almost. Really? I almost feel like it's funny that you say this. Right now I have my laptop down here and then a bigger screen up here. So they're like one's above the other. But I used to have two big ones, like one left, one right. And I started to realize I'm like, all I can see is screen. Yeah. Right. I'm like, I actually felt more claustrophobic. That's funny you say that.
Right. I guess less claustrophobic, but more like you're in a small room, like in terms of your workspace. Like when you're, it's so key to be able to look over on the right screen, read something off as you're typing on the left screen.
I agree, though. That's true. There's so much in today's world that you like kind of need to reference while you're doing it.
Yeah,
that's true. That's fair.
Like,
fair pushback. Fair pushback.
I would say, if I could just elaborate on that question, for me, less important are the tools for productivity, and more important is like kind of the approach. And I think health and fitness is very important. So like being active every day, whether it's a run, strength training, or yoga, eating very healthy, I think like if I ever feel tired during the day, I'll do push-ups, like just get the blood flowing.
Love
As soon as I
that.
wake up, I do 50 push-ups. It like gets your blood flowing and wakes you up. And then I think standing desk has been huge. When you sit down, it's so low energy. And I've
Yeah.
also noticed that like I don't have any of the issues I used to have in my shoulders and my neck. Like I used to have tons of pain up there when I was in the sit down all day. But now that I stand all day, like I don't have any of
It's weird, man. Those are great. I'm glad you said all that. I'm a big fan of that too. I've had ever since I actually started working at our X bar. It's funny. Me and my wife, we live in Chicago. We live out in the suburbs. When I was at our X bar though, I was one of like, excuse me, I was one of probably a handful of people early on that actually lived out in the suburbs. Most people lived in the city. And so one of the things our X bar did was they gave us like a stipend every month for a gym membership. Well, out where I lived, there were some gyms, but I just didn't really want to go to any of these like really small weird gyms. So I just asked them like, hey, can I just buy gym equipment? Can I use that stipend just buy gym equipment for my house? So I turned my garage into like a CrossFit gym.
Yeah.
And it was cool because it's like over the years of working there, I kind of like got more and more and more to the point now. It's like a full, it's like literally like a full gym.
It's outstanding, and you're investing. It's like an
in your health
asset
forever.
that you own. Yeah, it's an
Well,
asset
it's like
you own
all
versus
rogue
like a
stuff.
monthly fee that goes. You'll never get
and it's all rogue, so it'll probably last way past when I die. Like it'll be here forever.
Oh, yeah.
And
Smart move.
it's funny. Like now, it's like a big part of my house, and I over the years I've invested in. Like now, I have a cold plunge, I have a sauna.
What kind of cold plunge do you have?
I went with plunge just because I knew it was. There's. I will tell you this though. No one's asked me on here before. That one for sure is more expensive. What I love about it is it's in Chicago, like in the winter, funny enough, I actually in our backyard, I have like a legit cattle trough that I bought that I used to just fill it with water. It would freeze in the winter. Every day I'd take a kettlebell and just like break it up.
You're
that
like
works
guy on
though.
TikTok who
Yeah, it was definitely the guy. Trust me, all of my close family and friends would just berate me with hilarious videos of that. But the point of me saying that is like, you can start. I always tell people, start with a cold shower. If you can just turn the lever all the way to the coldest it'll go. If you can stand in that for a minute, do that before you spend any money on a cold plunge, because you can't. It's way harder. Excuse me. So, but it's such a great point, Dillon, because I agree. I have something I write down every Monday. It's funny. It's like a little reminder on my phone that pops up, but I always write it in my journal or my notebook. And it's it's consistent. Be consistently good, not occasionally great. And I love it because it's a reminder of just don't over obsess over being perfect. It's like keep going through your process. And everyone that's been successful ever, it's years and years and years of working really, really hard.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Lots of good days, lots of bad days, and there's no perfect way. But love that, man. I love the push-up idea. I'm actually, something I openly talk about, I'm really bad at over caffeinating myself.
Okay.
I always grab way too much caffeine. So I need to get some not beer in my life. And I think I might just do what you did. When I get tired, instead of grabbing another energy drink, I'll just do some push-ups. That's a great idea.
And you may want to check out Magic Mind. And so my
you said that.
My co-founder at Brahmi, not Aaron, but William Hicks, is actually like one of my best friends. And so we've been friends since the second grade. And we were roommates in New York. I recruited him. He was also in investment banking. I recruited him to Brahmi. He's now the co-founder and CEO of Magic Mind, and it's a productivity shot that is matcha based and lower caffeine. And so part of the value prop is that you don't feel as jittery as maybe on coffee or the over caffeine stuff.
Okay.
And you don't have to use as much caffeine.
So love it. Okay, I'll check it out.
It'd be worth a try. And you could be a good future guest on your show.
Yeah, I was going to say, definitely.
They're doing great.
Would love to interview him. That'd be great. Awesome, Dillon. Well, thank you. I know we went over a little bit on our time. I want to be cognizant of your time. No Last question. Where can people, we already said Amazon, so I'm assuming that's going to be the answer, but where can people find Not Beer? How can people follow the brand, follow you, and just stay involved?
Yeah, check us out on Amazon, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, all the normals. We're enjoynotbeer.com for our website. On Amazon, just search Not Beer. And we really appreciate any support.
Love it, man. Awesome. Well, I'll add all those links to the show notes, and I appreciate it, man. Let's stay in touch, and best of luck.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too, Dillon.